As the sun was setting, they finally arrived in front of the player association building in their car. Sung-hoon asked him if he knows what gets run over here, there, and wherever it goes. Giju asked if this was some sort of a riddle, since he wasn't really good at that kind of stuff. Lou asked if he was talking about determinism, while Brunhardt just said he didn't know. Sung-hoon, looking depressed, said that the answer was him. Shaking and covering his face with his hands, said that he was coming back now after setting off in the morning. He was sure he was screwed. Giju said that the association president excused him after he contacted him, didn't he? The president said that he understood, since it's related to the unique gates. While looking at Giju with a depressed look, said that this and that were different, saying that he didn't know the joys and sorrows of an employee, to which Giju just apologized, saying he was sorry. Well, with jokes aside, like he was telling him earlier, he was being summoned as a mercenary. He'll be meeting other mercenaries for the first time, and to be honest, not all mercenaries are friendly to each other. If he's worried about his identity being exposed, he could wear a mask. But Giju confidently expressed his opinion, said that he was not going to hide his identity anymore, and he wasn't going to need anything like a mask. Sung-hoon, while holding the old wooden mask, said with a disappointed expression that it was a shame, since he even brought this with him just in case. With a nervous expression, Giju remarked that he still had that with him, saying he really didn't need it. Later, standing in front of the meeting room, he thought that he sensed multiple sources of powerful mana from within, so this was where all the mercenaries were gathered. Brunhardt encouraged his master, saying that he was the strongest out of them all, while Lou reprimanded him, saying that's not true, asking if he was some sort of a master praising machine. Then Giju slowly opened the door and entered into the room where a group of individuals were already sitting on the table, with the association president sitting at the head of the table. He saw Sequo, a kid with his arms on the table, a masked figure, a set of female twins, and a guy with a scar down his face. He stood in front of them a little nervous, then saw Taeshik and the association president, waiting patiently for his arrival. The association president greeted him, then pointing to an empty chair on the side, and told him to sit there. Upon looking, he saw Sequo pointed to the empty chair next to him. As he sat down, Sequo told him that he's pretty late, to which Giju replied that he had stuff that needed to be taken care of. Suddenly, a kid across the table asked him about his code name, to which Giju thought that this kid was kinda rude to ask him about something that he didn't want to answer in their first meeting, and decided to answer that it's a secret. Lou told him that the energy this kid was exuding was impressive, while the kid just laughed, saying that he must have a childish code name as well. Then the man with the scar on his face looked in his direction, and said that he was finally able to meet the 11th mercenary. This was Kim Do-hyung, who was the guild master of the one-man guild, the Do-hyung Guild, which is considered one of the 10 great guilds of this country. Then, picking up on the comment, thought that he was the 11th mercenary, but looking around the table, excluding the association president and Taeshik, there were only 7 of them here. Not counting Soo-young, then 3 people were absent from this meeting. The association president called for order, and since this matter is urgent, he was going to begin the meeting right away. As they all know, the reason they have gathered the mercenaries is the unique gates that appeared recently in bulk. 20 in the entire world, and 5 immeasurable rank unique gates that appeared only in South Korea. Even an S-rank gate would be considered a disaster, but so it's no exaggeration to call this a matter of national extinction. Kim Do-hyung spoke up, asking if they called them to talk about clearing these gates, wasn't it more appropriate to talk to the 10 great guilds instead of them? Since mercenaries are ultimately individuals, and they should consider the differences between an individual and guilds. Lou was wondering why this guy was acting like this, since he himself was both part of the mercenary and also a member of the 10 great guilds. And Giju replied that it's probably due to a matter of interest, since the 10 great guilds are considered one organization, and he doesn't want to share the spoils with mercenaries that act independently. L thought that he might be an unlikable person, since he was thinking about profits in a situation like this. Sequo spoke up, saying that this wasn't the time to make distinctions between mercenaries and the 10 great guilds, since he should know very well that the gathering of mercenaries equates to a corresponding level of danger. While Scarface just stared back without a comment, the school kid raised his hand, saying that since the association president has already called them here for a reason, why they don't just hear what he has to say first. The president continued saying that firstly, what Guildmaster Kim Do-hyung said was valid, and the 10 great guilds should be consulted first in matters of gate clearing. However, this was different, since it may not be the case for him, since he was just a one-man guild, but did he think that other guildmasters can throw large numbers of their forces into unknown dangers? He was going to say this again, but this was a completely unprecedented event, and if they just throw large numbers and they're all obliterated, it'll be as if they did absolutely nothing. Therefore, what they needed right now wasn't a raid party, but a scouting party that can return alive. Then the twins spoke up asking if he means that even if things go wrong, it's worth calling it even if only a small number of their lives are lost. The president replied that it was nothing of the sort. What he was simply suggesting was a plan with the greatest chance of success. He will not force this upon them, just like it's always been in their relationship. Giju thought that those two twins, if you excluded the association president and Taeshik, would be among the strongest of the people gathered here, and both Lu and El agreed. The school kid raising his hand, said that he was in, that's just how mercenary work is, and had no complaints as long as he's rewarded handsomely. Kim Do-hyung said that in that case, he had no reason to be out either, and Sequo raising his hand also said that he will participate. Giju thinking that there are a total of 5 gates, and since 3 have already volunteered, he would also join and quietly raised his hand. But upon meeting eyes with Taeshik, he gave him the negative with a shake of his head from side to side. In that moment, both the twins raised their hands and said out loud that they were in as well, making it full. He noticed that the masked person wasn't participating. Upon getting the minimum number of volunteers, the association president said that he will be sending them the details at a later date, and asked if anyone had any questions or opinions. Giju raised his hand and said that he had something to tell them regarding the gates. First, he told them that he was near the area when the gate in Gangnam opened, and he has spent the day going to the other 4 gates to check them out. And after investigating the gates using his special ability, which he can't go into details regarding the ability, but it's an ability that helps him understand things regarding demons. This revelation shocked the other members, who had no prior knowledge about his ability, and some even had doubts. But by their reactions, Giju was able to figure out that they already know about demons. However, both the association president and Taeshik calmed their doubts by vouching for his ability. Then Scarface asked if these gates that appeared were really related to demons, and Giju replied that was the case. The 5 gates that appeared overnight, no, possibly all 20 gates around the world are demon territories. They all had shocked expressions on their faces. The gate is a territory, and according to the demon ball, to be exact, it's an abandoned territory. And Lu confirmed while they were investigating the 5 gates, that it was a demon territory. And they were completely different from regular gates. The 5 immeasurable rank unique gates that appeared throughout the nation, they were occupied territories. Meanwhile, inside one of these gates, green gas-like fumes were coming out of a black hole on the ground. These were territories of being that far surpass mere gatekeepers, since they are places that demons reign over the land as lords. As multiple webbed cocoons are shown hanging in the air, emitting a green aura. We see a giant mantis, surrounded by a powerful death aura. As the meeting came to a close, everyone else left, but he remained behind with the association president and Taeshik. He sighed deeply, since the rest of the meeting was so exhausting and took a while to finish. Brunhard simply called it boring, while El said the information was very important, but Lu pointed out that despite that, there wasn't much progress made from the meeting. Giju pondered on the 5 gates, and the 5 mercenaries assigned to each gate to scout it. He wondered if it was really okay to have them go in alone, since it's a demon territory after all. But El told him not to worry about it, and Lu said stop it, since he was driving him nuts. And asked if he was dozing off during the meeting. Since the association president had said that it's better for just one decent person to hit and run instead of a bunch of small fry attacking it. Giju thought that he didn't go that far. Then suddenly called Taeshik's name, and asked him why he told him to hold back, when he raised his hand to volunteer earlier. Taeshik started to rub the back of his head nervously, and said that he almost forgot, but he was planning on telling him after the meeting was over. Then told Giju to come to the association the day after tomorrow at 9 a.m., and he will tell him the details then. They were also going to be spending the night, so he should pack any necessities. Puzzled at first, Gidju just asked he would. Then Taeshik told him to go home first, since he still had things he needed to speak with the old man about. Saying his good night, Gidju left the meeting room and let out a big sigh. Then Sequel called his name from the side, and Gidju turned to see that he was still there and had not left with the others. Sequel told him that he thought it was a bit of a waste to just go home, so he asked Gidju if he wanted to go out for some drinks. Following behind, he asked Sequel what's up with him, since usually he's super busy. But he replied that it's just that this mission is a bit different from his other assignments, and he was getting a bit restless. Gidju asked is it okay for a guildmaster to play around before a big event, and he smugly replied that he's the one who works the hardest, so who would dare complain? Lu reminded him that he already made plans. Then he recalled that he promised Sunghoon that he would buy him dinner, as an apology earlier that day. Turning to Sequel, he as if it's alright with him if someone else joined them. Sometime later, in a restaurant, plates of sushi were in front of them. All three of them were getting ready to eat, while Sequel was about to pour some drink for Sunghoon. Gidju apologized to Sunghoon for inviting him to eat with them like this out of the blue, since he didn't really think he'll have any time starting tomorrow. But Sunghoon told him it was fine, and it's not like they were total strangers, and Sequel agreed, saying although this was the first time they met like this. Then Gidju recalled that they met during the Iron Guild incident, and Sunghoon said that was true, but he tends to meet all kinds of rankers while he works at the association. Afterwards, picking up his glass, said let's drink first since that will help take care of any awkwardness. All three of them put their glasses together and offered cheers. After drinking several bottles of soju, Sunghoon asked if he could ask them something. How did the two of them get so close? It looks like they've been friends for a while. Lu said come to think of it, he has never heard about it. El said it was because they met before he met them, and Brunhart said he was curious as well. Sequel with a happy smile on his face, said that he was Gidju's tutorial guide. And being even more curious, Sunghoon asked him how was Ranker Gidju back then. Sequel said he was super dark, and he would always be frowning like this, then proceeded to pinch the bridge of his nose, and Gidju protested saying when was he ever like that? Then turning to Gidju, Sunghoon asked him what was Ranker's Sequel like back then, since he was already famous by the time they met. Then smiling as he remembered the past, said he was super condescending. He struck the goblin with his sword killing it, then continued to pant as he was short of breath. Sequel with his arms crossed in front of him, asked still nothing. Then he grabbed his chin in thought. As Gidju looked at his status screen thinking, was there something wrong? His level wasn't going up, as the status screen still showed him at level 1. As he still continued to stare in a daze, Sequel said that the guide duration for today was over. As Gidju turned to look at him, Sequel bowed his head and said that unfortunately, he didn't think he'll be able to continue being his guide from tomorrow onwards. Gidju replied that he understood, and thanked him for everything until now since he knew he must be busy. But he noticed that his eyes, they've completely changed. The eyes that used to look at him like he had potential, had changed. It must mean that he was no longer worthy of investment. A month has passed since then, and he has hunted goblins until he dropped, but he still barely made enough money to live on by selling the few crystals that he earned. Still player Sequel came to check up on him now and then, but to be honest, he didn't find him very welcome. Was it curiosity, sympathy, or superiority that kept him coming back? Whichever it was a nuisance. He'd rather he just stop paying any attention to him. At a restaurant, he met with Taeshik who was a high ranker he knew, and they would occasionally eat meals together. Taeshik was saying that he got sick of the food within the gate. Gidju remarked that he must have been pretty busy lately, to which Taeshik replied he wouldn't believe, he was neck deep in work right now. Then asked Gidju if he had any problems, and he could tell him if he needed help. But Gidju with a smile asked how he could ask him for more when he's already given him so much. Cursing, Taeshik told him that he makes the big bucks, even so. Then as he looked at Gidju, he let out a big sigh. Then asked him how was he doing these days, but Gidju just looked down without saying a word. He had become a player, and he was going to tell him once he became able to pull his own weight. While tightly gripping his legs, thought that was a good choice. He's made up his mind. With a smile looked up at Taeshik and told him nothing much. Since he'll quit being a player. Sunghoon just sat there silently after hearing all this, then becoming serious, and asked, "So what happened, did he quit?" Lu was beside himself saying, "What the hell was he talking about?" while Brunhart shouted, "No, he can't quit." Lu beside him remarked incredulously, "What's with him?" But back in the past as night fell, Taeshik dropped Giju off at his house. And as he watched Taeshik drive away, he thought that once he'd made up his mind, whatever lingering attachment he had disappeared surprisingly easily. While walking up the stairs, he thought this will do, and he was going to think of this as having dreamt a sweet dream. As he was about to open the door to his house, he thought that starting tomorrow, he will need to start looking for a new job. As he entered the house, he saw shocked at the sight that greeted him. His sister was offering some orange juice to Sikwo, who was sitting at the table. Then noticing his arrival, Sikwo turned to look at him. "As there I met." Giju asked him why was he here. His sister came up to him and whispered that he should have told her that he had a celebrity as a friend. But he told her that he's not a celebrity, but a player and also not his friend. Sighing deeply, he wondered what on earth this situation was. Then noticed the nervous Sikwo sitting in his living room, and told him to let's talk outside. As they stepped outside into the balcony, Giju, being a bit annoyed by all this, asked him why had he come looking for him so suddenly, and asked if he didn't know that it's rude of him to do that. Still being a bit nervous, Sikwo apologized and said that he came here since he couldn't reach him on the phone. Giju looked at his phone and thought, this stupid phone turned off again. Turning to Sikwo, he asked again why he was here, and just saying this up front, but he had decided to quit being a player as of today, which shocked Sikwo. He shuddered and said, as for starters, can he take a look at this first, while reaching for something inside his backpack. In the next moment, a huge stack of papers was brought out in front of Giju. Shocked by this, Giju asked, what's all this? Then Sikwo started to flip through the papers and said that this was all research on how long a player takes to level up and how to improve one's own ability, also interviews from players across seas that took over a week to level up for the first time, and this. But Giju soon told him to stop, and wait a minute. Then asked what in the world was he talking about so suddenly. Sikwo apologized again, and said that he was not very good at offering comforting words, so he gathered some documents on his own that could be of help first. Since he was hoping that Giju wouldn't give up, which surprised him. He then asked why would he go this far just for him. But Sikwo said that he probably wouldn't believe him. But if he said that it was just a gesture of goodwill. It's just a calculation of his, a calculation he made so that he could make an ally out of a unique ability user with unknown possibilities. Giju was just speechless at this. Sikwo explained that while the occupation No as a player has become an integral work of their current society, but 18 years ago, it was totally unknown. This is what he thinks, but to him, unprecedented means having infinite possibilities. With a bright smile and pointing his fingers at Giju, said that we call that being special. Back in the present time, Giju was saying that was the sweet talk that he gave and caused him to suffer for 5 whole years for nothing. Pointing to Sikwo and said that he's a big-time scammer. While Sikwo next to him said what, didn't it all turn out well for him like he said? And turning to look at each other's drunken faces, Giju said that even a broken clock is right twice a day. Sunhoon just looked at this scene and couldn't help but laugh at it, then said that they managed to accomplish something that was hard to do. While even crossing paths is an act of providence, but they were also basically strangers back then. Sikwo laughed and remembered that there was nothing special about his first impression, since Giju had the excitement and yearning to become a player, and a slightly dark expression. Although they never had any deep talks, it wasn't hard to guess why he wore those expressions. Since he was always wearing the same few old clothes, and the obsession to get even just one more crystal. The potions he didn't use for places that couldn't be seen, he could have figured out the reasons even without looking through his personal information as his guide. To make things worse, he couldn't even level up. He wondered if it's because something connected in their hearts, but he started to think of something like this in his arrogance. For someone who's living a life rejected by the world for no reason, wouldn't it be fine if he had someone who acted positively towards him without needing a reason? Then loudly Sikwo said that it was simply because he was too kind-hearted. Giju next to him just replied as if, and Sikwo next to him slyly looked at him and said honestly, he's got no way to refute that right, he owed him. Giju with a smile told him to stop trying to take credit, he just needed to repay that debt right. And said that he'll just save his life, or something at least once in the future then. As Sequel looked back, a grin appeared on his face, and said that he sure has grown a lot from that person who used to be stuck on the first floor. 2 days later, at the Incheon International Airport. Lots of cameras were taking pictures, as director Taeshik came up to them to make a statement. The reporters were asking if the association was preparing a solution to resolve the gate incidents this time around, and if they had any comments on people saying that the end times are here. They also asked who are the players that will be participating in the meeting, and one person wondered if that was a new ranker. As Taeshik called their attention to look in Gidju's direction, a nauseated Gidju in a brand new suit and tie was wondering where he was, and what was he doing here. Subscribe to the channel for the next part. Thank you for watching, until next time.